Marine protected areas sound like they would benefit everyone. So why don't we have them everywhere? What are some of the challenges with creating these areas?
One of the biggest challenges when you're designing an MPA or a marine protected area is trying to find a solution which pleases everyone. And this is not easy by any means. This is what keeps my job interesting on a day-to-day basis. The first thing you want to consider is the marine life you're trying to protect and the habitats that they live in. So you learnt in your last lesson that coral reefs, mangroves and seagrasses are interconnected habitats that work with one another. And that means that different animals use different habitats at different points in their life. So for example, baby sharks and baby rays will use seagrasses and mangroves to hide in when they're juveniles. So it wouldn't really make sense to only protect those habitats if you're designing a marine protected area. Other critical areas you may want to consider when you're designing an MPA are areas where animals feed, breed, or where they live when they're young. These are called nursery grounds. However, lots of people use the sea for different reasons, and that's what makes it hard to protect the areas you might want to protect sometimes. Let me give you some examples of conflicts that you might come into when designing an MPA. Say, for example, you may want to protect an area where fish breed, which you know is important for its biodiversity value. But what about if this area is also heavily fished by fishermen? Or what about if you want to protect an area to go diving in for resorts or snorkeling, but this is also an area where fishermen fish? Or maybe you want to protect an area that's used by boats and people travel through a lot. These are just some of the things that you might want to consider when designing an MPA.
So how do we overcome these areas of conflict? How do we protect marine life as well as people's livelihood?
The best way to overcome conflict in these areas is to work closely with people and educate them about the importance of marine protection. Although people still understand the concept of national parks on land, many people live quite far away from the sea or have never experienced it, so they still don't quite understand why marine protection is so important. And this is what the Maldives Underwater Initiative does a lot of on Namu Atoll. We work closely with the schools there, trying to get the kids excited about the marine life and teaching them about how it works and functions right on their doorstep. We also work really closely with governments, fishermen, and we educate our guests at the resort a lot as well. But by far the most important thing that you need when you're creating an MPA is support from the community. And what that simply means is that you need the people that live in that area to want the marine protected area there. Otherwise, you run the risk that they may not follow the rules of the MPA, and that ultimately means that the wildlife aren't protected.
Thanks for that, Viv. It sounds like marine protected areas are a little bit more complicated than I first thought. Now this brings us to our final activity, which we have 2 parts for. The first activity is to design and create your very own marine protected area right here in Lamu. You can use the worksheet below to help you do your research and also to come up with any sort of solutions for areas of conflict. At Six Senses Lamu, we do a program called Hello Halu, which means Hello Solution in Devehi. As part of this program, the local kids learnt about marine protected areas and how they could benefit Lamu. The second part of the final activity is to write them a letter and email it to us. When we can visit schools again, we'll send them to all of the kids. They would love to hear your ideas and what is the favourite thing you learnt about Lamu. If you want to include your email, you might even get a letter back in a few months.